YOLO. Have you ever wondered what is masculinity? Well, in today's video, which is part one of a two-part collaboration series, we go over just that. I sent a list of 15 questions to two different amazing YouTubers who have taken the time to answer them and send back their responses. Now, after you hear from our incredible guest today, I'll answer the first half of the list myself, and then in the next video, I'll answer the second half. Our guest today is none other than Josh Waltz. Link in the description below so you can go check his channel out and subscribe because he is absolutely phenomenal. But without further ado, because I don't, let's have Josh get into this.
Hey, my name is Josh, otherwise known as Josh Waltz here on YouTube. I'm 21 and I'm from Houston, Texas, so do with that information what you will. But big thank you to Alex for having me on the channel to collab. This is different kind of content that I'm used to making. But he sent me a bunch of questions. He had me dig pretty deep. But I think it'll be fun, so let's just get into it. So what does masculinity mean to me? And has my opinion changed since I've grown? Well, to be honest, I was on the phone with a friend while I was brainstorming the answers for this. And we were going back and forth. And honestly, I came to the conclusion that there's not really one set way for men to be. You have people from all different types of backgrounds and that have different types of personalities that a lot of people would agree are all pretty masculine in their own way. Now, my friend, he was throwing out ideas. He thinks of someone who's reliable, and again, there's not really one set way to be. So my first thought was something Jordan Peterson said, where essentially you should be dangerous and then be able to control that. Now, I think dangerous can mean many things here. Obviously, it doesn't really just mean physical violence or anything, but dangerous mentally. You can be sharp, but control it enough so you're not just attacking everyone who may not be as sharp as you, for lack of a better term. Or from a physical standpoint, you could be jacked and not use it to attack but to defend. So again, I think of someone who's dangerous in all aspects of life and can control it. Now, as far as if my opinion has changed, I guess you could say it has, but it's more so just been, I guess I've developed an opinion. When I was younger, I mean, I didn't think about this. I honestly don't think about it that much now, but I do have a model in my head of who I want to be. So what were my role models? Man, Rocky for sure. And I think that kind of snowballed into me being a big fan of David Goggins now. And as a byproduct of both of these, it's kind of led me to wanting to do things physically challenging. For example, I want to do an Ironman, and I actually have a written bucket list, and one of my goals is to survive a Hell Week with Goggins. But yeah, growing up, man, I think that was everyone's role model, Rocky, and even in more recent years, Creed too. I watched Creed the other day, and I got so hyped, and I wanted to jump straight into the gym. Moving on from this, Alex asked if I had any examples of masculinity from media that came to mind. And I've had to look to movies and television for masculinity because I didn't grow up with a father. And maybe I should have mentioned my grandfather or my uncle in the last question. But because movies have been a very big part of my life, they're usually the first thing that comes to my mind. Case in point, Rocky. But I think Eminem in 8 Mile also portrays a fantastic role. I mean, he's struggling financially. He's in a dangerous area. He's got to take care of his little sister, again, financially, but also he's got to keep her safe. I think that is a very, very good movie for men, I guess. Whether you're in good times, it can keep you a little humble, and whether you're in hard times, it can keep you hopeful. My mom is always trying to raise me through movies as well, especially on the topic of masculinity. And a more recent movie that comes to my mind is Scarface. My mom and I have both seen Scarface, but occasionally she'll send me the clip where he's talking to the other mafia boss, and he says something along the lines of, "I didn't fuck anyone over who didn't have it coming." And the even more memorable and probably better line, "In this world, all I have is my balls and my word. You understand?" He says it with that accent. I probably sounded terrible. But my mom really likes to help raise me through movies, and that's been a major part of our bonding through the years. And now I literally only think in movie quotes. always having some type of movie quote and reference in my head. It's crazy. Right now, I'm thinking of that reference where Jonah Hill said, "Dude, your references are out of control." That was probably cringy. Moving on, but to circle back to the question, off the top of my head, big movie inspirations are Rocky, Eminem, and Scarface. And actually, right after I recorded that, I saw a text from my mom asking if I've seen the Redeem Team. So it's not in just fictional stories, but she also likes to use sports as well. As far as what makes these masculine, I think people who aren't afraid to chase what they want and don't listen to all the bullshit people try to give them. So, how do you think fatherhood, or the lack of it, influences men's sense of masculinity? Well, again, in my case, my father isn't around, so I'm not sure if that's the exact cause, but I definitely am a more emotional guy than others. But I guess to answer the question more, I really just got everything from my mom. She's a very big believer in manifesting, working hard, and not giving up. And as an example, she's also a really big fan of David Goggins and Kobe Bryant. I basically just mirrored a lot of the traits and values that my mom has, and that's been multiplied by the movies and media that she's shared with me over the years that has the same kind of message. So, do I think there's a difference between being a man and being masculine? I won't lie, I really couldn't think of an answer to this, but I was on the phone with my friend while I was brainstorming, and here's his idea of this question. In short, he believes there is a difference, but he made the example of being a man as more so chivalry and certain duties like taking out the trash and repairing the car. But when it comes to masculinity, he thinks of it more as a mindset. A masculine man can be someone's rock in hard times and himself doesn't waver easily. As far as social media's effect on men's perception of masculinity, I think it's created a divide. You'll have people, even in my own circles, you'll have some people who like Andrew Tate, for example, and their best friend may hate him, which inherently isn't that big of a deal. You know, y'all can be friends and not like the same people. That's fine. But it goes deeper than that because of what he represents. And, you know, where some people may see it as uplifting, I guess, other people may see it as degrading. And I really think a lot of the whole masculinity internet stuff recently has caused a big divide amongst men. The next question he asked me was about toxic masculinity, basically what I think it means and how I've seen it used. And I think more often than not, it's used in part to degrade, but more so to describe. And really, that's how I think of it anyway. I think it's really just used to describe people, and specifically, I think it's people who hyperbolize masculine traits basically to attack women. I won't lie, I don't like to use the word. I think it's kind of a dumb word, but also, I mean, I don't appreciate some things that people do. I know in my last answer, I might have probably sounded like I didn't like Andrew Tate. I like a lot of the stuff that Andrew Tate talks about and stands up for. That's cool. But, you know, there are some people that I think go too far with it. Myron from that one podcast being one of them. I think he's just an asshole. And he is a personification of what I would consider toxic masculinity. The very next question, he asked, what is the biggest misconception women or society in general have about masculinity? And here's where I feel like I'm almost repeating myself because I'm kind of saying similar words and terms and stuff to the last one. I don't know. Honestly, a lot of this feels weird and foreign for me to even talk about. I don't know. A lot of this, you know, I don't really think about that often, but my girlfriend actually brought this up. Basically, that masculinity equals toxicity. Uh, so, okay. There is toxic masculinity, more or less. Basically, just dudes being assholes to women. But then I think women have kind of hyperbolized that. And now a lot of women will just hate men. Especially men that, you know, I guess more or less do manly things. And so a lot of women, you know, think dudes or guys being dudes is just a toxic and messed up, gross, dangerous thing. I don't even know, to be honest. Uh, Sorry if I can't give the best answers on some of these. A lot of this I try to just stay out of. But moving on to his next question, he asks, "What's one stereotype about men or masculinity that you think needs to die off?" And I think it's that men need sex to survive. That's just not true. And a lot of women really think, that's all that goes through our heads. But as you'll find with some of my answers, like my first one with Jordan Peterson, and the next one I'll get into a little bit more, I really think restraint as a man is a good quality to have. And while, it may take some restraint to, I guess you could say, not have sex, again, like we can function without it. I know maybe some men have been in some, pretty dire straight situation, and maybe they just want something, and it's driving them a little bit crazy. But for the most part, it's not the end of the world. And there are a lot of men who have had to, just pick themselves up and go without it for a really long time while they get their freaking life together. I have a really good friend of mine. I mean, I don't know when the last time he's done anything, but he's going through a lot of stuff right now, and really, I think it's only making him stronger. But on the next question, he asks, "What's something that you used to think made someone manly, but now I see differently?" And in a similar vein to my answer to the last question, basically sleeping with a bunch of women. There's nothing more manly than having self-control. I think this goes to show how my viewpoint of being a man and being masculine has shifted, but you don't need to sleep with a bunch of women. I know I'm kind of just repeating myself, but again, I think having self-control is a very important quality of a man. So moving away from this whole sex topic, he says, "What's one piece of advice you'd give to young men trying to figure it out?" And while I still have a lot of lessons I need to learn, I think it's that kindness isn't optional. Being kind has been proven time and time again to give you a better life. They say kill them with kindness. So you have enemies, maybe, you'll want to respond to them in a very vindictive way. But again, being kind will not only help you get under their skin and get back at them, but also it will, for anyone, I guess you could say this is more of a spiritual way of thinking, but I really think it'll heal your soul. So there's really not been any aspect of life where you wouldn't further yourself by being kind. I vividly remember I used to work at Chick-fil-A, and one time there was a disgruntled customer, and one of my managers had to go talk to them. And in my head, I was so mad, and I personally felt like I wouldn't have reacted the way the manager did. But, that's probably why I was the lowest freaking tier position at Chick-fil-A. But the manager was talking to them, basically responded in kindness. And how did the customer leave? Happy. Be kind. That's all you got to do. So we're getting towards the end. He asks, "Do you think men today struggle with identity more than past generations? If so, why?" Yes. In short, yes. And it's because now we have the privilege to question our identity. Back in the day, no one had the privilege to question, especially, young men. It was like either suck it up or, go to the war and also suck it up. But now we've kind of fallen on easy times. And, there's that whole quote, like, weak men create hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men. We are in easy times right now. So what do I hope that the future of masculinity looks like for the next generation? Well, essentially just a combination of everything that I've said today. Someone who can be a rock in hard times, someone who's reliable, someone who exercises self-control, someone who creates the best version of themselves and is dangerous in every aspect. And again, exercises control. So moving on, the very final question he asks actually isn't even exactly a question, but he wants me to come up with my own question on masculinity and how would I answer it. Maybe this is a bit of a cop out, but I would like to kind of deviate from masculinity and just ask, are you fulfilled? And or are you working to be fulfilled? I feel like this is a topic people don't really bring up, or I don't see anybody ever ask this in interviews. Are you fulfilled? And it's a question that I think about a lot, especially if I were to interview someone. Are you fulfilled, or are you working to be fulfilled? Because I think that should be the end goal of everyone's life. Create a life you are not only happy with, but proud of. So this was a really long segment. I know Alex is going to have a lot of fun trying to edit all this, but this isn't as black and white as finance is, so it was a bit more difficult, but I hope you just enjoyed my experiences on this whole topic. It was fun. Thank you again, Alex, for having me out. If y'all haven't already, go subscribe to his channel. Maybe if you like my freaking voice and what I got to talk about, consider subscribing to mine. I'm really just finance and investing, so if you're into that stuff, come check me out. Alex has got a lot of his own finance and investing videos. But anyway, I got to close this out. Y'all have a good one. Hope this helps. Good luck on your investing journey.
Thank you, Josh. And everyone, make sure to go click the link in the description below and check his channel out. He does phenomenal work that is way more in-depth when it comes to actually looking at companies and checking out things like their PE ratios. But now, I'll go ahead and take my turn and answer the first 7 questions. Starting with number 1. What does masculinity mean to me, and has my opinion changed as I've grown? My opinion on masculinity has definitely changed as I've grown, and I'm pretty sure it's going to continue to change as I enter each new phase of my life. But right now, what masculinity means to me is deliberate actions and a series of characteristics. Things like honesty, integrity, restraint, self-control, respect. I think of all these things as masculine, whereas when I was a child, I was thinking more like loud, aggressive, strong was masculine. Number 2, who was my biggest male role model growing up, and how did that shape my idea of masculinity? Well, I have a dad, and I love him very much, but because of his work, he wasn't really there very much, which is kind of sad, and one of the reasons I'm working so hard myself, so that when I have a wife and kids of my own, I can actually be present in their lives. There was a lot of times where he would go to work before I would even get up, and he'd be getting home like an hour or 2 before it was time for bed. So he didn't have a very large impact on my sense of masculinity. However, I did learn some good traits from him that I've carried over to this day. But as a kid, I would say my biggest masculine influences would have been superheroes, specifically Spider-Man. I don't know how many times I've had it drilled into my head as a kid from watching the TV shows or the different iterations of the movies while growing up, or even reading some of the comics, that with great power comes great responsibility. Number 3, what are some examples of masculinity from media that come to mind? Books, movies, TV shows. And can I name any characters specifically and what makes them masculine? Absolutely. I did just mention Spider-Man, and one of the things that I found masculine about him, which was his sense of responsibility. But I'm going to pick something different here, which is a more modern cartoon that I watched, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I believe that the character Uncle Iroh is the epitome of modern masculinity in the healthiest form. He was once a aggressive, reckless young man leading his Fire Nation, committing war crimes, but then after the loss of his son, it had changed him, and he became a far more peaceful person. He chose restraint, he gained wisdom, and he was able to help teach that wisdom to the next generation. He wasn't haunted by the things that he had done. He had just made his peace with them and used that to continue moving forward and never hurting anyone again. If you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, you are missing out, and you definitely need to check it out. They have some of the best writing, for, I guess, any kind of fiction, but especially a children's show. Number 4. How do I think fatherhood, or the lack of it, has influenced men's sense of masculinity? I think fatherhood is incredibly important, and it used to be the cornerstone of men's masculinity. You would be raised by your father, who was raised by his father before him, and they would set the example and the tone of what you were supposed to be, and they'd teach you your morals and values. Now, sadly, in today's modern times, where we have almost 1/3 of homes being fatherless, that's not really happening. I think this has led to some people feeling lost and confused about who they are and what they're supposed to do, what being a man is really like. Number 5. Do you think there's a difference between being a man and being masculine? So, yes and no. Like, biologically speaking, there's not really a difference. A man is a man. But masculinity, I would say, is more a series of core traits or deliberate actions. You could have a guy who works an easy office job, who's never lifted a power tool in his life, who has soft hands, who's never gotten into a fight of any kind, and he could be more masculine than the guy who wields chainsaws, drinks beers, and goes to UFC competitions every week. It doesn't really matter about if you're a feminine man or a masculine man. It's more about the direct actions that you choose and the way you carry yourself, your morals, your values, your principles. There's a saying that I like, which is, for a girl to become a woman is a matter of biology, but for a boy to become a man is a matter of psychology. Because it really depends on who you are. There are 15-year-old men out there, and there are 35-year-old boys. Number 6. How do you think social media has shaped men's perception of what it means to be masculine today? I believe that social media has completely skewed many things and has made the world a worse place. Now, it's done good, but in regards to the subject of masculinity, and especially the red pill or black pill movements, I believe that it is pushing the wrong kind of message to young men, which is, you really only have value if you are rich. The only way people will like you is if you are the strongest, the best. You have to outcompete everyone. And this is coming from a type A hyper-competitive guy who likes to stack cash. Just because I enjoy it doesn't mean everyone else does. And it also pushes the wrong kind of message. Now, a broken clock is right twice a day. But being constantly fed stuff like that, you have to be the strongest, you have to be fit, you have to be alpha, top dog, whatever it may be, it's going to skew people's minds and bodies. They're going to end up with things like body dysmorphia because of it. That's why you see such a rise in young kids getting on gear, taking steroids, to try and look absolutely perfect. Now, I love competition, but I believe social media pushes the wrong kind of competition on everyone, pitting them against each other. I feel like real men will build each other up instead of tear each other down, and competition should be used so that iron can sharpen iron and we can make each other better. Rising tides lift all ships. However, that's not the way social media portrays it. Social media makes it seem like a zero-sum game. For me to win, you have to lose. And that's not the way things work in the real world. If you tried running a business like that, you'd go out of business real quick. Number 7. The term toxic masculinity is thrown around a lot in online spaces. What do you think it means, and how do you most often see it used? I think it has become so broadly used to cover a plethora of different things that it's lost its original meaning. It's used to almost describe anything masculine now, or anything that somebody disagrees with that is related in any way, shape, or form to masculinity. I believe there are toxic traits of masculinity and toxic traits of femininity, but I think the meaning of the word has become muddied and lost since it's so overly used. Now, as of what I think for the rest of the questions on the list, you'll have to find out at the end of the next video. Yes, it's a cliffhanger, a part 1, part 2. because it was a little longer than expected, so I figured it'd be better to split it up into 2 different segments. But again, massive thank you to Josh Waltz. Go check him out. Also, a massive thank you to you for sticking around the video this long. I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And feel free to give your opinion and your answers in the comment section down below. I'll go ahead and leave the list of questions in the description. That way we can start a discussion and see what everyone else thinks. But, as always, I'll catch you on the flip side.